How can a purpose-driven mindset act as a stabilizer?
First of all, it does start with people. And one of the very first things that we talk about is something called the 3P relational model. And the 3Ps are private, personal, and then professional. We hear that word toxic quite often. It is rarely intentional.
Traci Fisher, founder of the Healthy Leaders Group, an executive leadership coach and former U.S. Army helicopter pilot, now helps leaders bring clarity, energy, and balance to how they lead and live. Today, we'll explore how leaders and how leading with purpose transforms people, teams, and the entire healthcare organization. Traci, it is a pleasure to have you on Ideal Health Solutions podcast. Thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This is a conversation I really care about.
Look, I am so excited about you. When I was first introduced to you and just had a chance to kind of have our first conversation, I promise you, we hit it off. It was amazing. And like you said, I am just really excited to have this conversation around purpose and leadership, because I think it's often heard, sometimes understood, but not necessarily in a way that I think leaders can grab the meat out of the overall understanding of it. So I'm looking forward to it, and let's jump and dive right on in, okay?
Okay, let's do it.
All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is the power of purpose. You often say that when purpose-driven decisions, people and organizations thrive. How do you help leaders in healthcare organizations reconnect with their purpose, especially when they're operating in such high-stress, metric-driven environments?
Wow, that's a really big question. And first, I will start off by saying that really it's an individual in terms of literally individuals, and also the individuals who make up a culture in terms of identifying what their purpose is individually and then also as a culture. And so I think that when we're talking about that, really what we're talking about is identifying who they want to be and what their vision is first and foremost. But very often it's hard to define that because there are so many pressures in healthcare today specifically. And the first one has to do with people. And you mentioned some of them in your opening in terms of staffing shortages,
Correct.
turnover, right? Teams running on empty, and leaders feel responsible for all of that. And very often they haven't been given the tools to address the human side of it.
That's
So
big.
understanding values, purpose, what drives humans first, I would say, is the most important. So that's what we dive into immediately, is who are the people and what drives them individually. And then in terms of healthcare in particular, there is this space between clinical or operational excellence and then people leadership. So
Absolutely.
your audience, we know that they are all incredibly competent at what they are doing technically. And then often leading people, especially through constant change and pressure, is a totally different skill set. And many people have not been explicitly taught it. And so I think part of that leadership teaching and understanding that gap between operational excellence and individuals and the leadership piece is really important. And then, and if we can identify the individual and the team culture and values together, then I think we can hit both of those pressures pretty quickly.
I love that. I love the approach of people first. And I think oftentimes we forget, because we're in such a driven world of AI generation and trying to keep up with the next biggest, brightest, and shiniest thing, we tend to put people on the back burner. And we're in healthcare, so we are focusing on helping people.
Right.
But it oftentimes gets neglected because there are so many other pressures in front of us. So I love that you're putting people first, which so many leaders need to do now. So we're seeing healthcare leaders under immense strain. I mean, it is totally understandable. But with this overall intense strain, financial pressures, we're talking about staffing shortages and political shifts as well, which we could take a take a completely different turn down that road.
Right.
How can a purpose-driven mindset act as a stabilizer amid this, if you want to call it, chaos?
How does a purpose-driven mindset act as a stabilizer?
Correct.
Yeah, well, that's such a great question. And I would say that it is the stabilizer.
Oh, I love that. I love
Because,
that.
well, so it's interesting because first of all, it does start with people. And one of the very first things that we talk about is something called the 3P relational model. And the
Hmm.
3Ps are private, personal, and then professional. So private is you and the relationship that you have with yourself, the purpose driven mindset that you have or that you don't have. And then the next layer out is personal. And so that could be the people that you love the most, or the people that could be at work, or it could be the people, that are in your family, dear friends, but how do you interact with those people? And then there's the professional piece, which could be your clients or your colleagues or your patients, but it's there's a little bit more distance. But when we talk about those 3P relationships, they always start with the private. And so when you ask,
That's good.
right, so when you talk about the purpose mindset, then when we go to that private and what is your relationship with yourself, we're talking about three key capacities. And the first one is your mental capacity, which is literally your mindset. And are
Mindset.
you using your brain and and all of its amazing gifts to increase your mindset or to decrease it? And then that cascades out into how you relate in each one of those scenarios. So it shows up just fundamentally to answer your question, and that's
Correct.
driven not just by what Traci Fisher thinks, but it's driven by neuroscience, it's driven by
Hmm.
positive psychology, it's driven by your own experience and what
Yes.
people know about their relationships. So if we first and foremost are aware of our own mindset, and I know it sounds like a poster on the wall, like manage your mindset, but truly if you're really really doing that, then your influence and the way that you communicate, the way that you collaborate, the way that you connect, the way that you relate, that's what creates culture. That's what creates your results long term. And it starts with your great question, the mindset piece,
The mind.
for
Oh
sure.
my goodness. And I love how you start private, because it really is an internal situation that we have to address first before we start to deal with the external factors, if you want to call it.
Yeah.
That internal work, you have to do that. It cannot be skipped. It cannot be delayed. Oftentimes, what we're finding out is in work in different environments, when you see the external factors, there's always something deeper. We always there's the five why questions that we often ask. Why until you get down to the bottom of it.
Yes.
Same thing goes internally with yourself. You have to deal with that internal self. I often talk about on the podcast that internal voice that you have for yourself. You have to deal with that. You have to talk um, to yourself. And when we say self, we're talking about working on the inner areas of your life
Hmm.
that's going to help you make the best change for the positive as you're moving forward.
Hmm.
So there is so much inner work that is needed, that needs to be addressed. I think in each of us that can all make it, the work environments that we work in, a better place.
100%. 100%.
Well, look, a recent Harvard Business Review article found that purpose-driven cultures report 40% higher engagement and retention rates. I love engagement. I love retention rates. This is right in my alley. So I want to know your perspective. Yet many healthcare organizations still struggle with toxic culture issues. And this may go back to internal work as well. What's the
Hmm.
disconnect you see from your perspective, and how do we fix that?
Well, when you say what's the disconnect, what do you mean by that?
When I say the disconnect, what is the disconnect between seeing that purpose driven cultures have higher engagement, however, healthcare organizations are still struggling with that toxic culture? So we know that it works when you have purpose driven cultures, but our healthcare organizations aren't seeming to get the message that, we have to have purpose, we have to drive purpose, and we're seeing major toxicity within our overall departments, interdepartmental relationships between departments, and even within health systems alone, which is causing higher turnover,
Mhm.
causing stressed out doctors, and suicide rates are through the roof for our physician teams and things of that nature. So where's the disconnect when it comes to purpose driven work in our current state of healthcare?
Well, it's interesting because the first thing that I will say, and I think that we hear that word toxic quite often, is that it is rarely intentional. And I think that it almost always comes from a lack of self awareness. So the
Agree.
leader who is shutting people down, who is creating fear, they don't usually see themselves that way. And believe me, I have coached through working with individuals and teams where everybody's pointing the finger at somebody, and they very often are clueless because back to the focus of this particular podcast, their purpose might be to get the job done at all cost.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe that their communication is a little abrupt, but they don't realize that they're scaring people away or that it's having an impact on patient care. So I would say that the disconnect starts again to go back to self leadership and to the individual is understanding and having some self awareness. I literally was just
Absolutely.
finishing up a call with somebody who went through some leadership training, and he said to me, there was a recording that was being done of how he was sitting there listening. And he said, I never realized the look on my face. Like, I'm
Wow.
passionate, I'm really intrigued, but I look like I'm scowling. So he didn't even know that. So having that awareness internally requires, and this is the tricky piece, to be open for feedback and to
That
say,
is so good.
yeah, and for people to say, not only am I want to be aware and I want to learn and I want to be willing to be better so that I can live my purpose. I also get to simultaneously be willing to open myself to feedback that, of course, is going to be uncomfortable.
Oh my goodness. You're not only going to save a lot of managers, you're going to save a lot of relationships as well. If my wife is listening, I heard it. I totally heard what she said. And
Yeah.
I know, but on that side of understanding, you have to be open to feedback as a leader. I mean, that is imperative to the work that we do. As leaders that are working with patients, I would say care for the caregivers. If we're providing better care for our employees, they're going to provide better care for our patients and our communities as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes from that open feedback, that two-way street. 360-degree feedback is often what we hear often in healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
ensuring that everyone has an opportunity to speak on how I perceive your work, how I perceive your overall communication style, and how that actually affects the work that I do as well. No, not many people respond well to yelling, or the scowling look, if you want to call it.
Right.
They don't respond in a positive light. However, if you're seeing that your employees aren't as receptive to the overall message, then open the dialogue and say, hey, how would you like to be spoken to? How would you like for me to provide the overall feedback? And I think that just changes not only how work is done for the organization, but it also changes the entire atmosphere for the work that you're doing as well. So I love that.
And I think you're keying into something that's really, really important is asking that very simple question. How would you like to receive this? And again, I was coaching with someone earlier this morning who was in
Mm-hmm.
healthcare, neonatal, and he was talking about the huddle
Mm,
that they are in. And not to get into too much detail, but they were talking about whether or not they're going to discuss the healthy babies or the sick babies. If they have more than 75 babies, then they're not going to discuss the healthy babies because they got to get to the sick babies.
mm-hmm.
And for the first time in a very long time, they had under 75 babies. And so
Wow.
because they hadn't been discussing the healthy babies, this was a little mini crossroad where they had to decide if they were going to discuss the babies and they're in the healthy babies in this
Mm-hmm.
huddle. And he said, hey, let's just pause here. This is the way we've been doing things. Are we going to continue? Do we want to talk about the healthy babies? And someone said, who cares? Like, let's just go on. Let's just keep doing what we do. We don't need to discuss them. And he, as a
Absolutely.
great leader, stopped and said, it's important because everybody in this huddle, I want to hear what they think about it. And it could be an open and shut case, but I
Mm-hmm.
want to hear what other people think just very quickly. And so that's a great example of saying, what do you all think? Very, very quickly. It took like 10
Absolutely.
seconds, but it comes from his purpose, right? His
Yeah.
value of creating psychological safety, of creating trust. And he just did it very naturally, but it's a great example of what you're talking about in terms of asking other people and being open to it. Big
Oh,
deal.
that is so huge. And such a small change, but such a significant change as well,
Hmm.
to ensure that your employees, your team, anyone that you're coming in contact with actually feels heard in the overall conversation. Um,
Hmm.
when we're communicating, it's great to talk, and it's great to you get your point across oftentimes. But when it's a two-way street, it is so much more enriching. positive ideas come out of that overall different interaction between two people as well. So I love that you're bringing in the fact that you ask those overall questions. Well,
Yeah.
look, I'm going to speak to the audience now. If you have not already, please like, share, and comment within this overall episode. Talk to us and tell us what you understand from your standpoint. What key points are you seeing from a purpose-driven life, a purpose-driven understanding of your organization that can help transcend where you currently are now to move your organization in the right direction? This is Traci Fisher, who is giving us some great nuggets as we're moving forward. So continue to comment and let us know what you think of the overall episode. So Traci, I want to transition a little bit. I want to talk about authentic leadership, and I know you talk about being a coach. You and I both understand the coaching environment. We've both done it. You continue to work in this overall space. From your work with executives and leaders, what distinguishes leaders who say they lead with purpose from those who truly embody purpose?
Well, even the way that you just asked that question is pretty much the answer to it, right? So I think that what you're talking about and what we're talking about here is taking those leadership vision statements, mission statements off the wall or off the paper or from the retreat and actually creating specific behaviors. And so
That's
when you
good.
said embody those behaviors, that means I believe this. It is one of my values as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I am embodying that and I believe that, then how do I behave? How do I
Absolutely.
communicate? And so it's interesting because I think very often we're like, and we do have formulas and models and ways to start to have difficult conversations, or here are
Mm-hmm.
some techniques that you can use that will kind of get you started. But when it comes down to it, if you truly are living from your values and you think before this conversation, who do I want to be? What is my purpose? What are my values? Then what comes out of your mouth will be reflected, embodied, if you've embodied it truly,
Absolutely.
and what you say and how you behave will be grounded in that.
Mm-hmm.
Comma, very often you might be thinking, what is this jerk talking about? Like, I don't understand them. And then how do you behave? You still, at that point, and this is where we coach and we create a little bit of space, say, okay, if my reaction is, "Arr, that jerk, I've told him how to do this procedure 5 times, they're still doing it wrong." If you are in tune to what you are embodying, increased heart rate, increased blood pressure,
Absolutely.
contraction, if you're aware of that and you're listening to your physical, your somatic response, then that can become a tap on the shoulder to go, oh, okay, how do I respond instead of how do I react?
Correct.
And so still, even if there's these moments or these situations, these emergency situations where you start to feel that response, that actually the automatic reaction, then you can take a moment and respond if you're grounded in your values and your
I
purpose.
I love being grounded in your values and your purpose. That is the key. You have to establish what those values are and stand in them. Ground yourself. That helps. Oftentimes, myself as a leader, I've learned to understand what my values are, and if they don't align with the overall organization, you'll see some some rubbing of the rocks, if you want to call it. But it is important to have that grounded understanding of where you are. I love how you say you can reset, and during those overall incidences, they're going to happen. You're going to have a coworker that's going to irritate the stew out of you. You're going to have someone that's just going to just rub you the wrong way. You're going to have conversations that are going to be difficult. So you prepare yourself by understanding what your values are, how you are going to stand in that in those particular difficult moments. I always tell my children, I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. I'm training them on how to deal with difficult moments. We don't win every day. I totally understand that.
Oh,
So
that's beautiful. I love that you're doing that.
yeah, so in those moments, okay, how do you want to respond? Give yourself space. See, both Tracy and I were both were trained as coaches, so my mind automatically goes to coaching, training. How can I help in this overall moment?
Hmm.
So, how do we respond in these difficult situations? How do I respond to that coworker that I just don't mesh well with? And it keeps the big picture in mind. I love grounding yourself, but grounding yourself helps you keep that overall big picture in mind as well.
Hmm. And
This is a
the thing that I'll add to that is to I'm very much a model person. I like to do things in three so that I can
hmm
remember it, so that the people that I'm working with can go, okay, what were those three things? So when we if we could rewind to the private, personal, professional, and we're talking now
yes.
about private, really what we're talking about are three key capacities.
Mm,
The first one we already talked about. That's your mental capacity, your ability to
absolutely.
just kind of interrupt the pattern that's going on, to think differently, to think back to your values. And then there's the emotional capacity, which we kind of just touched on a little bit too,
I love it.
which shows up, if it's one thing to feel something, that's physical, that's a feeling, and it's another to know that your heartbeat is racing because you're really upset.
Correct.
So, and identifying those emotions and being able to notice that they're a tap on your shoulder and to say, okay, what am I going to do with this emotion? How am I going to allow it, respond to it, react to it, whatever it is that you're going to choose to do. And then the third one is your physical capacity, which
That's
is
good.
a combination of your somatic response and then also what you physically are going to do. So I share that because if you're grounded in your purpose,
hmm
okay, that could sound like something out on the wall also. Like, how am I grounded in my purpose?
That's
Well,
good.
there may be a daily routine that you could do. It could be prayer, it could be
hmm
meditation, it could be reviewing your vision statement.
That
That's
is
a
good.
physical how. It's something for you to do, and I recommend that people do it on the daily. Is like, what is my purpose? Private, personal, and professional. Who do I
Correct.
want to be today in that meeting with that patient, with that colleague? And to remind yourself, because the treadmill's going to start.
It is going. Absolutely.
Yeah,
It is definitely going to start for
yeah.
sure. I love that. Grounding yourself and really understanding how am I emotionally going to show up? How am I physically going to show up? Because those factors are going to happen. They're inevitable. We live life. We have no control over some things that are external to us. So our best bet is to build a ground or build a stance of how to deal with those particular situations when they in fact do happen. And I think it's often the people that don't have that understanding that life is going to happen around you, so you have to be prepared for it. That are often the ones that are most unprepared when those situations do happen.
And I don't
All
want
right.
to gloss over what you just said, though, because life is going to happen. Things will get in your way. And again, that can sound slightly trite. And if you want to make it meaningful for you, then think about your life. When do you get interrupted? Is it your kids?
Every
Is it
day.
right? I know. Is it that one particular colleague? Is it the colleague that knocks on the door even though you have a sign that says "Do not interrupt"? Is
Correct.
it this particular type of medical case? Like, what is it that kind of throws you off? And then how do you behave in in the midst of
Mm-hmm.
that? How are you thinking? How are you feeling?
Feeling.
How are you behaving
That's
based
good.
off of your purpose and based off of your values ahead of time?
I love the Trinity. Everything is the Trinity, but it makes so much sense. I mean, even when what you're talking about feelings and understanding, for me, it's prayer. That's how I get through most
Hmm.
any type of situation, good, bad, or completely terrible. It
Yeah.
is prayer. It's my grounding in my faith. For anyone, it could be whatever you decide that you want to do, but it's having something that you can hold on to in the good times and also in those times where you just need something to physically, emotionally, or mentally just hold on to. So that I really believe that that's important.
Yeah, and I think that that's the tagline for this entire show, right? Something to hold on to, your
Yeah,
purpose.
your purpose. Absolutely. We're going to talk about how to discover that overall purpose in a moment.
Hmm.
But I want to shift a little bit. There's often this false dichotomy that leading with purpose means lowering performance standards. How do you see purpose and performance working together rather than competing?
Well, that's really interesting. And can you give me an example of how? Because to me, that seems very foreign in terms of they seem like they
Sure.
go together.
They seem like they do, but oftentimes leaders believe that if I'm going to lead with purpose, I have to be soft. I have to be a
I
pushover and allow people to kind of run over me and just take it on the nose and keep going. But tell me how purpose and performance really should work as a team together.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting because I was speaking a couple of weeks ago to a group of healthcare leaders, and one of the slides that I had we were talking about, let me see if I can remember this. It had to do with, I think it was creating connection and empathy and, those. what very often old leadership references as soft skills, as you were
Yes.
just
Hmm.
referencing. And there's a very specific slide that I had in there that was a broken chain, making your exact point, which is
Okay.
that when you lead with the powerful emotion and intention of purpose, and your purpose has both of those, it aligns all. Actually, there are three aspects to it, right? What actually is the purpose in terms of the wording that you give it, what is the
Hmm.
feeling that you have behind it, and then what is the behavior that goes with it. So when you are literally leading from that place, that is powerful
That is so
versus
powerful.
forceful. And so I think
Oh,
that
I
that's
like
what we're
that.
talking about when we say when I have to be forceful to get people to perform. I have to, crack the whip. I have to tell them
Correct.
what to do. I have to be on them all the time. I'm not disregarding that there are people who don't follow rules, or that there are people that you need to um, respond to and that you need to have performance evaluations with. That's different than us leading with purpose, which is grounded in your values and being able to say very strongly, I believe in you. And if you come to work late one more time, I'm going to have to put you, I'm going to have to let you go, or I'm going to
That
have
is
to do
so
X,
good.
Y, Z. So you can hold them together. I'm not sure if I explained that very well, but the idea is that you can, in one hand, have empathy and, dare I say, love, and whatever
Hmm.
your values are, you want to be of service, and then simultaneously say, and this is the structure that we're going to use. And being able to hold those two together at the same time, that is powerful. I mean,
That
that's
is
living with purpose, right? So when we do that, then people know what to expect. They know that you're holding them capable versus accountable.
correct.
And then their performance, their decision making, the way that they show up, now you've tapped into their values. It makes a huge difference.
That's so amazing. I often go back to thinking about some of the greatest leaders that I've ever had, and they did lead with purpose and they led with love, which is something that you brought out. I think it's we get weird with the word love because
Yeah,
there's so many different types of love. But
right.
when we're speaking of love, we're speaking of the purest understanding of I care genuinely about your well being.
Yes.
When it comes to that understanding, and if you're a leader that leads with love, your employees feel it. They understand it. They may not be able to directly say what it is, but they know that their leader, they can count on their leader to do what it is that's needed, whether it's disciplining them, whether it's providing guidance or direction, or even just being there and being a listening ear. I
Yeah.
have employees that I've worked with for years. I mean, 10 years back, and we still communicate to this day because when I was leading them, we had just such a great relationship. Still checking in, seeing them growing into their families and seeing their families grow. I think that's important, of having an understanding that leading with purpose, oftentimes, if you can really delve down into the foundation of what it is, and maybe
Mhm.
it's one of my foundational principles, it is love.
Yeah.
So that I really appreciate you bringing that point out.
And the other thing I'd like to add to that is that a good way for your listeners to think about this, and I stole this from a psychologist many, many years ago when I was parenting. I was going to a parenting course. And it's this idea that when you are leading, whether it's your family or your community or in a professional setting, that you can think of it as a song. And so a
Hmm.
song has a tune, and then it also has words to it. Obviously, not all of them, but this song does. And so the tune is purpose based. It's
Correct.
love, it's respect, it's empathy, it's how I feel about you, it's the connection piece, which is separate and distinct from
Hmm.
the words. They go together to make a great song.
They do.
And that's one way to think about, if you have a song that's performing well, that means that I have this connection with you, and I have been very clear about the standards and the systems and the expectations and your roles and your responsibilities. And I'm being very clear about those while also singing this tune of, and I care about you.
Oh, I love that. You're speaking to a musician, so that analogy just spoke directly to my heart. I love it.
You
That
can,
is so good.
right, right.
You know me so well, you know. That's good. So, shifting gears just one more time for those listening who may feel disconnected from their overall purpose.
Mm.
Maybe they're mid-career or burnout or just unsure about what's next. what's one exercise or mindset shift that can help them start realigning towards their overall purpose?
That's a great question. So I will start with the idea of just relax for a moment. That's a big question. And to come at it from a space of knowing that you already own, you already have, you're already capable enough to answer that question at the right time, and that you have been born with, have trained, have learned different skills that really speak to you. And
Mm-hmm.
to let that settle for just a moment and to kind of take a deep breath and into that and not force it necessarily, but to just give yourself a little break. And the reason I share that right now is because when we are asking people to define their vision, private, personally, and professionally, it needs to come from a space of love, from a space
Mm-hmm.
of openness, a space of, oh, if I could have something, really, what would it be? And to
Mm-hmm.
get into that space means to get off of the treadmill and to
Absolutely.
not be on like, okay, what is my purpose? What do I need to do next? What do I like? That's not going to generate a great answer, and it's not fun
Not
either.
at all.
So I would say that just to start off with is to just kind of relax a little bit around it and let this answer evolve for you. In terms of the exercise, I use those same three relational segments in terms of private, personal, and professional.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Healthy Leader Inner Circle, we go through different exercises and meditations will help people kind of get into that state. Um, or I just ask questions if I'm coaching them. And the idea is that when all is said and done, and when you look back on your life,
Mm-hmm.
what would you want to say about who you were and how you showed up in your
That's good.
life, in your private relationship, and how you experienced the most out of life? Like, what made it a great life for you? Secondly, what made you a great partner, mother, father, person to be with? Why were you so good at that?
That's
And then
good.
finally, professionally, what do people say about you at your retirement party? All the way from the people who, are helping keep the floors clean to
Mm-hmm.
your patients to CEOs. What are they saying about you that makes you feel really good? And if you can identify those from a place of your purpose,
Yes.
from there, you can say, huh, this job might match, or that position might match, or does this match? And you can go from there. But I personally feel like if we don't start from there, that we can start going at different positions and maybe they'll kind of match.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe sometimes we choose those positions intentionally for the finances, for the situation, for the environment, for the demographics, whatever. But if you really do know your own purpose and your own vision and your own values in those key relational areas, then then you can begin to really understand who you want to be and where you want to go.
That is amazing. I love how you started off with just saying, just pause for a second. We get into the bustle of life and the hustle and bustle of life. I was telling my wife earlier today, as I was washing dishes, I saw myself just moving really, really fast. And I saw a video on Facebook talking about this. It said, why am I rushing to wash the dishes? I brush my teeth and I'm brushing really, really fast. And I'm like, why am I going so fast? Like, what is the rush? And oftentimes we are in this rush to just get nowhere fast, honestly.
Well said.
So we have to just really take that moment to just pause, to breathe, whether it's a situation that requires a decision from you as a leader, whether it's a career change, you're trying to figure out what's next. Take a moment to just sit in it, pause, breathe, and think. Honestly, that's the biggest way that I've seen myself move forward.
Mhm.
And then allow those moments to kind of happen. Allow the purpose to be identified as time goes along. There's another thing that you said about time. It's not going to happen overnight.
Mm-mm.
I was talking about John Graham's podcast, which we released yesterday.
Mhm.
It's not going to happen overnight. John said his transition took him 7 years to kind of transition and say, I'm going to be a better person. So it
Mm.
may take you some time. So be okay with there being some space in between making the decision to move forward and the actual transition and change to happen.
Yeah.
I think those are two main key points to kind of to pull out from what you just said, allowing yourself to pause
Hmm.
and being okay with the time that it's going to take for you to get better and to move forward. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. That is
Yeah,
beautiful.
absolutely.
Listen, I only have one more question, then I want to learn all about what's coming up for you, Traci. My
Hmm.
final question is, how can leaders cultivate purpose driven teams that not only thrive at work, but carry that same sense of meaning into their lives and communities?
Yeah. So I think this entire podcast, we've just talked about how to do that. And
True.
And I will again share that it does start with the individual leader. You asked that question about embodying. What are you embodying? How are you literally showing up? Are you pretending to have the right behavior, or is the behavior coming from your purpose and from how you want to be and who you want to be? And so that's first and foremost. Is It's 100% starts at the top with all of your
Absolutely.
leaders, with the board, with the people on the leadership team, with your directors, that each one of them takes personal responsibility for their individual health, energy, and performance, hands down, and that's something that they do daily and that they support one another in it. So that's the beginning and it's the
That's good.
foundation. It's like the base. We're
Hmm.
talking about people, connecting with people, and so we're talking at an individual level. And then as you begin to know what your purpose is and you are behaving from that, then I would say that there are three key behaviors. We like to say that culture is values plus behavior.
Hmm.
And the three
That's good.
blocks of behaviors that we use in terms of performance evaluations, or okay, we have this big problem in this one department, it's gonna fall under one of these three, and it's either communication, which is many ways that we can communicate. It's not just
That's
how
a
we're
huge one
talking.
there.
Right. Yeah. It's not just how we're talking, it's how we're emailing. It's, are we saying, hey, how are you doing in the hallway to
Correct.
one another? It's our stance, it's the tone of our voice, all of those things. So there's the
That's good.
communication piece. The second one has to do with connection. And again, that could sound like one of those quote unquote soft skills, but it's how do people feel around you? Is there
Hmm.
psychological safety around you? Do they
That's
trust
good.
that you're not going to jump down their throat? Do they trust that you're going to take what they're saying at face value, even if you can't do anything about it right now? So, how do you feel and how do other people feel
Hmm.
when you are around them, including patients?
That's good.
And then the third aspect is collaboration, which is really how do we move with one another? How do we support one another? Do we step out of our own lanes, our own roles and responsibilities to support one another? And so I think if we are talking about creating purpose driven teams, we start from that: what is my purpose?
Hmm.
How am I showing up? And then in those teams, what is our culture? What is our purpose? And what are our behaviors in those three key areas? How are we behaving to reflect and build that culture so that we're living that purpose, not just as individuals, but as teams? If you're doing that, there's no way that you cannot not only just skyrocket your results and the way that you're managing patients but now it's fun to be at work.
Absolutely. Yeah.
One another, right? You can, everybody gets online with the purpose. That's it. That's all we have to do, right?
Well, listen, you have given the roadmap to transition and changing the overall culture, not only individually for your teams, but really for organizations abroad. How can we make those overall transitions and changes? It's internal work. It's understanding yourself, how you perceive yourself, how others perceive you, how you're communicating internally, how
Mm.
external communications are interacting with you as well. So if you can do that, I mean, you literally have given the golden key to transform some of these toxic environments that individuals are working in. That's going to help to reduce some of the overall burnout for organizations that have high burnout, and turnover rates can significantly drop as well, because now people feel that you understand them, you care about them, and that you want the best for them as well. And I think that's what's often missing in organizations is work, work, work.
Yep.
However, I'm a person. I'm a person first. I have kids. I'm a spouse. I'm divorced. I'm married. I have, I have a dog. I have a cat. I'm an individual first before I come into this office to put this badge on to clock
Hmm.
in to work for you. And I think if we can keep that at the forefront of everything that we do, we're going to transform how work is done in the healthcare industry as well.
Yes. You, you just said my book.
Well, look, speaking of your book, tell me about what's coming up for you now, Tracy. I'm so excited about this.
Well, so I am just finishing up. It'll be released probably early summer, The Healthy Leader. And it is literally about the stuff that we were talking about
Oh my
in
goodness.
terms of creating individual health to start off with. And then how do we also create teams, healthy teams as well. I will say that it's mostly focused on the individual to start because even though you just encapsulated the book very quickly. All right, these are the hows. This is how you do it. Really pay attention to your private relationship, your personal, your professional, your mental, your emotional, physical. The book and the coaching around it is okay. What does that look like for me? What do you mean by that? How do I put a behavior in place for myself
Wow.
so that I can begin to live that? And so that is what the book is about. It's divided into three sections that are loosely based off of, you'll appreciate this. Yeah, as soon as I just said that, just it popped out of my head. Loosely
Yes, sir.
based off of, it's discover, design, and dare, which has to
Okay.
do. What is, do you remember? I know that you did well coaches as well. I have to cut this part out. It was well coaches.
Yeah.
Um, is it appreciative inquiry?
Yeah. Appreciative inquiry for
Okay.
well coaches. Hmm.
Okay, so here we go. So here's a restart. So it's loosely based off of appreciative inquiry in
Hmm.
terms of first discovering who you want to be in those relational areas and understanding
Correct.
those three distinct capacities. And then after that, it's designing and crisscrossing who you want to be with what your current life is like and
That's amazing.
literally modeling that, designing what that looks like. And then the last part of the book is about, okay, now how do I practice daring to know my purpose in that difficult conversation?
That's
How
good.
do I actually show up and start that project that I've been putting off? And so it's a operating system manual for individuals to use in terms of how do I be healthy? And I say it like that on purpose. How do I be
How do
healthy
we?
individually and then also in all of my relationships? So that's what's next on the horizon for
I
us.
am so excited about this. As soon as it's released, please let us know so we can share it
Absolutely.
with our audience. We maybe have to pull you back on so we can talk through the overall book as well. So, if you keep your calendar open down the line, we'll try to get back on yours and see if we can get some more
Absolutely.
information about the book. What about the podcast? Tell us a little bit about the Healthy Leader podcast as well.
Yeah, so the Healthy Leader podcast is a combination of two types of productions. And one is me sharing healthy leader individual aspects in terms of, what can you do boots on the ground in this particular situation, and really integrating mental, emotional, and physical behaviors and learning how to align who you want to be with what you actually are doing. And then the second
Absolutely.
aspect of it is with the expert forum, where we bring on authors and experts and leaders in the field who are seeing what the current problems are and how they are leading through them so that we stay up to date and give our listeners a way to look at that team aspect as well as the individual leadership
Absolutely.
piece. Yeah.
That is amazing. Well, listen, Tracy, thank you so much for joining us today. Your perspective reminds us really that leadership isn't just about where we're headed, but why we're going there. For those listening, you can learn more about Tracy in the Healthy Leader Group by visiting thehealthyleadergroup.com or following her on LinkedIn as well. Is there anything else you want to leave with our audience? It's kind of like the final word before we hand out.
You know what? I would just like to leave them with my personal gratitude and also
That's
leave
good.
you with that as
Oh,
well.
please.
Very, very grateful to be here. And anybody who is listening clearly is looking to level up and be better and do better. And it is my wish in this moment that they have a little gratitude for themselves and do a little celebration, pat themselves on the back for showing up and changing this world.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again, Tracy, for all of the insights that you gave. I'm going to sit down and re-listen to the episode just to kind of pull the nuggets. 'Cause I can't really take the notes that I want to as I'm sitting here, but this was a wealth of knowledge for anyone that is really trying to work on building out their overall purpose and really just understanding why purpose is important for the work that we do. This podcast, this particular episode is definitely going to be for you. So thank you again, Tracy, for everything that you shared. And I wish you well on your book release and everything that you continue to do to help as we're moving forward in this overall healthcare industry.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tim. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I'll do the ending later, but look, thank you again. This is amazing, Tracy. You gave, wow, I'm just like completely blown away by today's episode. I am appreciative for everything that you shared,
You're
for
very
your flexibility, and just for being available to help. I will give you the raw recording as soon as I get it out.
okay.
I'll make the edits, just the small things that we
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
cut out, so that you have to worry about that.
Yep.
And I'll cut out the fire alarm and everything else that happened today. But please, if there is anything that I can do both now or even in the future, I am at your disposal. And please just let me know how I can help. Okay.
Absolutely. I want to share with you something that I think is very useful for your podcast and that I don't think that we covered in terms of this, which is when we're doing individual coaching, the very first step, I've got 6 key steps. The very first one is to do that vision and to make sure that things are grounded in their vision and their values. So that's how important I think that purpose is. And I think that you and I are 100% in agreement with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll cut that in too, so that we can definitely provide that
If it
information, that
works.
knowledge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if it works.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, bless you for doing all of this. That's a lot of editing.
Yeah, it works out. When the girls asleep, I have a chance to kind of just sit down and pause for a moment and allow things to kind of happen as we talked about today. But I really do enjoy it, and I'm learning a lot, I will say.
I
Um,
bet.
so it's fun to do. All right, that's a wrap for today's episode of Ideal Health Solutions, the podcast. I'm Dr. Timothy Brown, and I want to leave you with this one thought. When purpose drives leadership, innovation and compassion follow naturally. If today's episode inspired you, share it with your colleague or a leader who could use a reminder of their why. And be sure to follow us on LinkedIn for upcoming episodes and conversations with change makers shaping the future of healthcare. Until next time, stay purposeful and lead well.